All right, we're live.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Today is February 24th, 2022 for our monthly PRAC meeting. We'll start off calling to order with introductions. Again, I'll go left to right, top to bottom on my screen, and if I call your name, just wave if you would, so everybody knows who we are. We got Steve Williams, member of PRAC. Brent Haberkamp, Joey Knopf, Andy Crump.
Hello.
Karen Morey.
Verbal wave.
And I am your chair, Troy Bollinger. Excused tonight are Tim West and Ken Worcester. First item of business is approval of minutes. So if we, everyone got a copy of this, had a chance to take a look at it. Do we have questions, comments, adjustments, or a motion?
I have a motion, but I see Karen has her hand raised. Sorry, I jumped the gun there, Karen.
Well, okay, yeah, you haven't made your motion, so we're okay. Yeah, Karen, your comments?
No, that's okay, because this is my personal favorite typo. Under introductions, guests, I doubt that Kurt's companion was Brain Martin. I assume that needs to be corrected to Brian. The content of the minutes appeared to be wonderful. It was just typing, which looks like Karen's typing. So if you don't mind, I will move that the minutes be corrected with the minutes be approved with the correction of Brian Martin under guests.
All right.
If you saw my email inbox, it's about a 50-50 chance of which way it comes in. So
I can imagine. So do we have a second on the motion, amended motion or amended minutes?
I'll second it.
I saw Andy and I heard someone else.
That was Joey.
Joey, okay, we'll go with the verbal. So Karen with the motion to approve the amended minutes, and then Joey with the second. Do we have any discussion or comments before we poll? Okay, Justin, you want to poll?
Yeah. Andy Crump.
He gave you a hand sign.
Okay, I didn't see. Sorry. Brent Haberkamp.
Aye.
Karen Morey.
Aye.
Steve Williams.
Aye.
Joey Knopf.
Aye.
And Troy Bollinger.
Aye.
Motion passed.
And do we have anyone that signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda?
No.
Nobody. Okay, then we will move on to our presentations for the night, starting with mitigation funding for Clackamas Park Master Plan. That's Jerry Herman. And Jerry, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe I can do it in 9, but we'll see. Okay. First of all, Justin, are you ready to pull those slides?
Yes, I am.
Okay, fine. Mitigation funding. You've heard about this before. I tidied this up and really focused on Clackman Park. What is it? Back about 14 years ago, Governor John Kitzhaber watched what was happening in the lower Portland Harbor, where serious problems of pollution and other issues had built up both in the bottom and along the shorelines of huge areas from the Broadway Bridge all the way down to Columbia. He wanted to see it not get listed as a Superfund site, but guess what? It did. In the meantime, he set up a program for industries that were in the area, including the Port of Portland, Portland Development Commission, and many private industries to contribute into a fund to clean up their mess. They started cleaning up their mess, and they've done a huge amount of that work. But in many cases, the habitat enhancement efforts that they hope to do ashore began to really impinge upon their ability to do business. So they said, let's see if that funding can go upstream, at least to Willamette Falls. Now it's even going upstream to Canby, by the way, and take care of areas that have a better opportunity for habitat enhancement. What does this mean to Clackman Park? First of all, I want to tell you some of the other cities that have benefited. You've heard a little bit of this before, but now I'm going to be more specific. City of Gladstone, $10 million worth of improvements have occurred at Melton Bar Park, Melton Slough, Doll Beach Park, and what I call the 9090 wetlands right below the 9090 bridge on Gladstone's side. In the city of Milwaukee, Mayor Gamba down there is trying to now, is actually in the final throes of getting the funding flowing to rehab Kellogg Creek, Kellogg wetlands, and other things in that area. And he's doing it not just for the purposes of wildlife, but so he has a beautiful development area for overhanging restaurants and things of that nature. City of Lake Oswego is now looking at it at Oswego Point. And if Ken was here, I know Westland was looking at it too. Next slide. What does this mean to Clackman Park? Slide 2. Okay. In your park, go to 2, a little higher up there. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay. In Clackman Park, you have the confluence of 2 rivers. You know those 2 rivers, the Clackamas and the Willamette. Both of them have listed salmon, steelhead, and lamprey eels, which we talked about earlier, which are not the most incredible things, but they're pretty amazing animals that inhabit those areas. You have great habitat potential at Clackman Park, since you have 2,500 feet of river between 9090 Bridge and the mouth, and another 4,000 feet between the mouth and basically the upper part of your park and its abutment with John Storm Park. Habitat improvements are right on order that can be funded by others. Your master plan process, I talked with Kurt Lango today, and he said, Jerry, I'm really in favor of this. What do I need to do? I said, well, I'm going to give this presentation tonight, and the fundamental things, if the master plan can include things for people, which of course it would, and wildlife, recreation, habitat enhancement, and so forth, the funding potentials to get the job done after the master plan, that is the work on the ground, can occur. What really happens in mitigation? Professionals come in and work with Kurt Lango, for instance. He does the master plan based on what your community wants and what you want as members of this committee. And ultimately, they come together and figure out what is fundable, what makes it sense to the trust fund folks that have the money, mostly out of Portland. And then they put the money into the effort with professionals doing the design work, the implementation work. They can involve youth in planning or enhancement efforts. All sorts of things can be done, but that process needs to assess what is the potential. Your park has a lot of potential. Habitat enhancement kinds of things. You have the riverside vegetation issues in particular. You have riprap and armor along on the Clackama side, but that riprap and armor without much adjustment can be interplanted where it presently has almost no value. In amongst it, that could occur all along the face of the Willamette. There's huge opportunities there where the riverside vegetation has been degraded over time and lost, can be re-enhanced. Trails, access ways, things that benefit people and their direct contact with the resource areas. That's what it's all about, including education and interpretation kinds of exhibits. All right, now your RV park, number 3 there. Your RV park, I'm sorry to say, is kind of a biological desert. It's a great thing to have as a service, but boy, could it be enhanced. And I'll talk about some ideas with that as we go along. All right, next slide. We're going to go to pictures now. All right, these are pictures. I'm not going to claim that they're going to show you everything, but they'll show you a few things. First of all, that vegetation that you see there is typical of what you see in the park. What's missing is a lot of the understory vegetation that could be in these plantings. The lower picture there was your boat ramp parking lot a week ago. Your boat ramp parking lot, though it's not used for that now, we had 1,000 plants to plant, and we did it in one day down there with volunteers about 10 years ago. A lot of that stuff has died out now because of just issues of maintenance and such. But the point is, if we make an effort to reestablish a canopy that's layered, so we have diversity of habitat values, and the trees at the bottom aren't just the trees, but have other things around them, you wouldn't believe what a difference that makes for songbirds. Next slide. Thank you, Justin. You're doing great. All right. This next slide shows you a couple things here. Some more of the habitat issues around the base of trees that We used to call it more polite at Clackamas Community College, where I worked building that environmental center up there. But mowers would come up and tractors and hit the trees. Now, your groundskeepers are better than the ones up there because I don't see much of that issue. But why do we have to get so close to the trees to begin with? Cottonwoods may not be your favorite, but you have many other species there that with a layered canopy of bushes, native vegetation at the bottom can make a huge difference. That's all fundable, and it's the kind of thing they want to see. That picture at the bottom is of your location near your RV park of where the Clackamas and the Willamette come together. Did you know that in this area there's an existing trail corridor? I didn't know was there. I hadn't looked at it for a while. Boy Scouts and others put that in a long time ago. It's next to your tent camping area, quote unquote. I haven't seen too many tents there, but along the outside edge near the river is a beautiful trail that goes among the boulder fields and is all vegetated. John Waverly's done a great job in retaining that there. You know, that area is 5 feet higher, the so-called tent camping area, than where the existing RV park is. 5 feet higher means it won't flood very often. The normal ordinary high water line of the river is 25 feet. That's the height of the present RV park. If the RV park as a concept, just to think about, was moved to the tent camping area where there's just as much room and a beautiful vegetated area, people could enjoy that RV park in a much different way. Next slide. I'm trying to maintain my requirement of being on time. Do you know that you have the most industrial interpretive facility in Oregon? Rocky Smith, Commissioner Smith, asked that this be built, that structure on the top, by the Oregon City Senior High School construction teams, and they did it. They had to go through all sorts of permits. I think John Waverly remembers this. Its purpose was to serve as an education and interpretation structure in part, and perhaps a picnic table or two. This is already there, waiting for educational exhibits to perhaps go into it. The lower picture down there shows, again, some more trees, but I want to just take a moment and mention to you Clackamas Rapids. Anyone heard of that before? Karen has, I know. Clackamas Rapids is where the Clackamas and the Willamette come together. It was the most difficult navigation challenge on the entire Willamette between the Columbia River and Eugene, because steamboats had to, in some cases, winch themselves, pull themselves with heavy lines and steam-powered winches on the front, up through the difficult navigation. That story has never been told and can be told right here. Or to the right of that picture on the top is a sewer outfall, believe it or not, with a fence around it, ready for signage. So the mitigation funding can also help support education and interpretation. So these are some of the things I wanted to share with you. I go to the next slide. I think that's the last one. No, there is one more. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so ending up with a picture looking upriver towards the Abernathy Bridge or downriver, either one at that location, beautiful waysides and such. There's your Klackman Park RV station. So what am I saying in all this? One last thing which you may not have with you is a draft letter. I always come to you, I suggested with a concept letter, you can think what you want to do about this. That could be sent to either the commission or given to your design team. You've got great people on this design team. After the design is done, how does it get built? What if $2 to $3 million can come into Clackman Park to make the design concepts the community wants and you would support happen there? Wouldn't that make a difference? This letter, it's 2 pages long. I'm not going to go through it right now, but it basically says to the city commission or to your design team, these are the criteria. The second page is kind of criteria that would begin to entice people to consider Clackamas Park as the next mitigation and enhancement project on the Willamette at its confluence with the Clackamas. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions for Jerry? No questions, Jerry.
Thank you all.
So that means either you were very clear and
Sorry.
covered everything, or you were completely confusing. We don't know what to ask. It's always one or the other, right?
There you
No,
go.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Karen, you had a comment or a question?
Thank you. I have a motion. I move that we adopt Jerry's recommendations and have them included as this process moves forward. We do have an open house coming on March 1st. But I don't want to lose sight of using these mitigation funds, which is why I am moving that we adopt Terry's recommendations and ask that they be included in the record for the Clackamas Park Master Plan.
Okay, so your motion is that why don't you just state just your motion? I want to make sure we get it right. So state just the motion.
I move that we adopt Jerry's letter of recommendation, which is in the packet, and that be included as we move forward with the master plan.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second. This is Andy.
Okay, so it's Karen with the motion, Andy with the second. Any questions or discussion?
Troy, just one, I certainly want to support what Karen is describing here. I don't think we can afford to, we certainly can't afford not to try and take this approach, given the kind of funding that is available. And with this unique property that we've got, it hits the mark, I think, on a number of different criteria. So I think we would be remiss if we didn't certainly support the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve. Brent?
Jerry, one question. Where does this mitigation funding come from?
Well, that's a very interesting question. There are over 1,100 so-called mitigation banks in this country of ours called America. There's about 10 of them on the West Coast. The one that's being used right now in Portland, out of Portland, in support of Clackamas Cove, which you think you know about, some work at Clackamas Cove might happen. That's called RestorCap. That's a professional company that manages the funds that are available through the trust fund I talked about in Portland for appropriate projects. So there are a number of these banks where money is sequestered for worthwhile projects. The issue is worthwhile. They have to show merit, and that's why your master plan process can do that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before we poll? I have a couple of thoughts. Jerry's presented to us a couple of times. This might be the second time, possibly the third. And we have done letters in the past. I'm 100% in support of this type of program. I'm 100% always in support of any funding that's available that can lighten the burden for the city. And I'm always in support of getting citizen input as far as, in this case, design and use. The challenge I'm having right now is the letter, and I'm fine with a letter. Please, hopefully you understand what I'm saying. I'm fine with a letter. The challenge I have with this motion is it is simply to adopt the letter that we're presented. And I personally would feel more comfortable using Jerry's letter that he presented as a template or a starting point, and then we collectively tailor it to fit Oregon City. Absolutely. And then sign it as a committee. So for that reason, I will be voting no on this motion, and I encourage you to follow me in doing that. And then if this motion fails, I will be making tonight another motion similar, but not as restrictive to using exactly this letter, but using a letter that we all can agree on. And that's a matter of formality. Kendall, please.
I just want everyone to be aware that Jerry is a part of our stakeholder interviews. So all this information is currently being shared with Lango Hansen, Brian, and Kurt. So all of this is going to be considered in the concept designs when we come back to you. There's not necessarily a need to make a recommendation. We are going to take this information, whether you say to take it or not. It's going to be part of our public engagement. So I don't know if there's a need to do a letter. We're going to use this information, like Troy said. If there's an opportunity to get money for a park, which this sounds like there's an opportunity there, we're going to pursue it. So I just want you to know, we value the information that Jerry is sharing. We are going to take that information and use it. So, but if you do decide you want to draft a letter, we'll take that information as well.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Karen, you had additional comments then?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Kendall, I do understand that Jerry has been heard, but I think it's time that PrAC recognizes this. He's come to us several times with some of this mitigation information. And as a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, you know, I think he set his letter out very specific to this current question. And I think as an advisory committee, our standing on this in a growing record doesn't hurt and may help, because this is something that I'm not seeing the city pursuing, which is why I'm recommending that we approve or we support his letter.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Steve, I think you have a hand up, right?
Just a point of clarification for me, Troy. I was listening to what your recommendation you were describing for us. How, as the new guy, how do we get, if we did want to do a letter that maybe was more tailored or specific, how does that get done with regard to the committee? I mean, what happens? How does that occur?
The logistics. So
Yeah.
how that, in this case, how that would take place is Jerry would send me going to CC Justin and Kendall on that, but send me the letter, and then I would use that to kind of craft something that I think, and listening to your input, certainly email me, but then I would craft that letter, send it back to Jerry without a signature to make sure that anything that I may have changed is materially correct. So we're not signing something that has incorrect statistics or whatnot. Once we know that it's accurate, then I would distribute it to all members of PrAC. We don't need a vote, so we don't have to hold a public meeting for that. And once everybody in PrAC has an opportunity to review it, at that point, I would then physically sign it and deliver it to Jerry. Does that make sense?
Troy, I guess if the point is that if the Parks and Rec is already going to use these recommendations regardless of the letter, why go through the process of making a letter?
Well, I think that's a legitimate question too.
Hold on a sec. Why don't we just vote on it and move forward?
Fair enough.
Had a motion. Let's just move forward and vote on it.
Okay. So Brent, did you have any more comments around those?
I was just a little bit confused by a comment that I thought I heard Karen make. I heard Kendall say that the city's moving forward with this mitigation funding, but I thought I heard you say, Karen, that you didn't see the city moving forward with it. And so I was a little taken aback by that comment.
All right, and I need Jerry to clarify.
I can clarify that mitigation at this point in the city has a focus on Clackman Cove only. But the people that I know that are involved with Clackman Cove, I helped kind of shepherd that along. They are telling me Clackman Cove is going to be even harder than trying to do something at Clackman Park. And there ought to be a request to include Clackman Park as a target for mitigation funding. And that's why I feel at this time, you don't have to use my letter. You can send it on to Lango Hansen if you want, but the issue is this is the time to be asking for not just Clackman Cove, but for Clackman Park and your other park resources to have a chance to benefit from this kind of funding. Clackman Cove is a lot harder subject right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
Karen.
All right, seeing no more comments, we have the motion and the second. Justin, will you please poll?
Yes. Steve Williams,
No.
Joey Knopf,
No.
Andy Crump,
Yes.
Brent Haverkamp,
Aye.
Karen Morey,
Aye.
and Troy Bollinger.
No.
So that was a tie.
That was a 3-3, so motion does not prevail. So what's that? Was there a question?
Troy, so what was the motion? The motion was to move forward with the mitigation funding, correct?
No. The motion was only to take Jerry's letter as is, sign it, and use it as support of the mitigation funding. It was not about whether to move forward with or not, because as Kendall said, they're already moving forward. They're already considering it. So it's now failed to use that letter. So then it comes to question, and we don't need to belabor this tonight, but it comes to the question, do we leave it alone and just move on, knowing that Jerry, Jerry knows that he has our support, everyone's good, it's on public record, or do we make another motion for a different letter so that Kendall has something in the file that can always be referenced if necessary? Steve?
Well, I heard Kendall tell us that the reality of the fact was we didn't need a letter to get our point across. Whatever.
Correct.
If I need to make a motion that says whatever it takes to indicate the support of the PrAC committee, we can do that. But if the letter is not needed, then the work probably doesn't need to be done. Certainly this committee, my no vote didn't say that I didn't support it 100%. It was, I'm looking at the process, and it seems to me like we don't need to make more work than we need to based on what Kendall told us.
Bingo.
And my no vote means the same thing. I completely support the program. I just don't think that, I don't want to approve this letter as is. Karen, you had a comment.
Actually, Steve, thank you. I move that the Parks and Recreation Committee support, and I'm trying to find the right wording, mitigation funding for Clackamas Park as part of the current master planning process. Jerry, does that cover it?
Beautiful.
Okay.
Do we have a second
No
to that?
motion.
I second.
Okay, that's Karen with the motion to support the mitigation funding with the Clackamas Park master plan, and then Brent with the second. Any discussion or comments about that? Justin, will you poll, please?
Yes. Andy Crump,
Aye.
Karen Morey,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Brent Haverkamp,
Aye.
Steve Williams,
Aye.
and Joey Knopf.
Also, aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you all.
All right, Jerry, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you. Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, so now we're going to move to Hazel Grove Park update. Brian, not Brain, Martin is with us tonight. So Brian, it's all you.
Yeah, Justin, do you have those images to pop up? Wanted to start off just to give a little bit of background, run through the park real quick. I think there's some folks that haven't been around for past presentations, and just to catch everybody up to speed. So once we have those up, I'll start speaking to that. Great, so thanks, Justin. This here plan, sorry for the CAD drawing, we didn't have any illustratives that matched exactly where we landed in the end. This is really closely based on the master plan design that we worked with the city on back, I think it was starting in 2014. So this is what is now Hazel Grove Park down the Hazel Grove neighborhood in the south end of town. And it's about a 3 acre parcel of property, and fairly heavily wooded on the center of the plan and to the left, mix of a lot of Douglas firs and a lot of Oregon white oak existing on the site before we started doing any construction. And then on the plan right side was quite a bit of open lawn space. And then important to note that there's an NROD zone that bifurcates the site with a seasonal stream. It's basically just runoff from the nearby neighborhood. So what we did was provide the design for a looped pathway going through the site, and it's pervious concrete to decrease the amount of impervious surface here and decrease the amount of stormwater that would be required on site. So there's the looped trail system that connects to several parts of the site. There's a centrally located picnic shelter with several picnic tables. There's benches and picnic tables located around the loop trail. There's a short bridge that spans the en-rod zone to decrease the impacts in that zone. And then there's also right center in the site, there's a playground. So if you go to the next slide, it's kind of a zoom in on the play area just to speak to that real quickly. There's a couple different elements there. There's a nest swing on the top. There's a number of precast concrete log steppers, a spinner, a really cool climbing boulder. I haven't gotten to use it yet because I haven't taken the fence down, but looking forward to that, or my kids are anyways. And then some other scrambling equipment. So if we go down, I collected a series of site photos just to show the construction. I guess just to give a brief overview, this is from, I think, late last year or very early January, nice sunny day. Construction is pretty nearly complete out at the park. All the concrete pathways, all the lighting is in place, all the benches are installed. You can see off in the distance, just barely, there's the pedestrian bridge, the picnic shelter is up. All the seating has taken place, and all the mitigation planting further down. You can't see it in this image, but in the en-rod zone, that's all in place. The irrigation has been installed. During construction, there was some, it came to note that there was some additional pruning that would need to happen for the existing trees in the park. So that work has mostly been taken care of. Back in early February, we did a punch walk with the contractor. We walked the site, and honestly, it's one of the shorter punch lists I've done in a while, which is good. And they are doing corrective action on some seating, and once things are ready, they'll be removing the erosion control measures you see in this image here. Yeah, so things are moving along quite well. And Justin, if you scroll through some of these other images, you can get a little bit more detail. Here's the picnic shelter that's in place, looking really good. And this is the bridge that's further down. Some of these were during construction, and the progress has progressed since then. A couple of shots of the playground itself, the large climbing boulder there in the background. And, these are all precast concrete pieces here. Have a nature play theme. So overall, it was a good experience with the contractor. They're still wrapping things up, but they're doing a good job. And I guess just in conclusions, looking like once the seating is established, that's kind of the last thing before we let the public in. So I think looking at targeting just a spring opening for this park. That is my update.
Brian, thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Brian?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Steve, please.
Yeah, I was out there earlier this week and drove around the park. Just one question, Brian, on in your first picture on the far end of the park, there's a section that the park butts up against a street stub, and the fences are across there now, and it says no parking. What's the plan for that little piece, if you know where I'm talking about, on the far end of the park? Yeah,
that's Kohler Drive there, and it basically just dead ends into the park.
Right.
So there's, at the end of it, there's some just end of roadway designation signage there, but that's kind of just a remnant of the way that the development happened a couple decades ago. So that's the extent of that road development there.
And there will be access at that point to into
That's
this park?
correct. There'll be parking on the sides of Kohler there. And
Yeah.
there's basically the looped trail system connects right to the end of that end of Kohler Drive there.
Thank you.
Karen, please.
I just have to say, I swear it's not that long ago we dug the first shovel full of dirt up there. This park is a dream. We've talked about it for a long time, and boy, once it came to be, and it is natural. It celebrates a piece of history of Oregon City. It kind of encapsulated what things looked like here before we put in our dairy farms and whatever up in that area. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I've got one. So you say the park is mostly finished, just a little more seating and whatnot before the public is let in. So my question, probably maybe more for Kendall, although Brian may have some information that helps the answer. I think it'd be great if the entire advisory committee could tour that, even if it's not 100% done, before it's open to the public. I mean, I think the 8 or 9 of us can be pretty good and not walk on the grass that hasn't grown in yet. I mean, I think we're going to be fairly well behaved, but if we could do that, I think that'd be great. And maybe we even schedule that along with tours of other parks, because I know that's something we had discussed in the past as well.
We would be happy to arrange that. I know we have some ongoing meetings at that particular park during the week on Tuesdays. So let me have some conversations with John. John's not on the call tonight, and work on scheduling some times for us to be able to provide that tour. And as Troy mentioned as well, we're still looking at planning some tours of our parks in the spring with the committee as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Brian, thank you for your time. Appreciate you being here with us.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay. So Kendall, you have an introduction for us.
I do. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make this introduction in January because of the length of the meeting, but I'm very excited to announce Melissa Sebastian is our new Aquatics and Recreation Manager. Melissa accepted the position back in December. Melissa's been with Oregon City for 15 years as a recreation programmer, office specialist, and head guard. And we're really excited to have her in this new role. She was very important in helping us through the transition when Rochelle left, and she's been doing a fantastic job. So, Melissa?
I think you said it all. But no, thank you, Kendall, for the introduction, and him and his team for selecting me to be the new aquatic and recreation manager. I, like Kendall said, have been working for the city for the last 15 years and a lot of different roles. And I didn't include this in my biography, but I was born and raised in Oregon City. So I really do have a heart for this community, and I'm truly honored that I get to help provide aquatic and recreation programs with the swimming pool and Ermitinger House and different events throughout our facilities and parks, and really excited to see what I get to keep doing over the next 15 years, hopefully. So, but I know I've met some of you guys throughout the years, but I'm really excited to get to work with all of you and hopefully meet more of you in person as time goes on.
Welcome, Melissa. Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Kendall, do we want to do movies in the park now, or do you want to go to staff reports and then include that in there? How do you want to do it?
Let's do movies in the park now.
Okay, go ahead, Melissa, that's you.
Great. So Movies in the Park is one of the programs I've been doing. I think I've been doing it the last 5 years. And Justin, if you're able to share the list, that would be great. But essentially, I'm here to present a list of movies that we will be opening to the public to vote on tomorrow. We've been allowing the public to vote on which movies they want to see since 2014. And historically, we've brought you the list so that you can advise on if you think a movie should be removed for any reason. I do want to note that all the movies on the list are rated PG and that we're not showing any PG-13 movies, as I know that was previously a request made by Crack. And this is also a list that we've made sure to be diverse as far as having both new movies and older movies. And we've chosen these based off of the popularity of the movies, both in the past couple of years and some all-time favorites. And they're also movies that have the available licensing that we need, because certain movies, depending how the licensing works, aren't always available to be played in August. So then from here, I'll open it up to any questions or comments that you'd like to provide.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Melissa about the movies or the list or just anything about the movies in the park? Karen, please.
Melissa, beautiful list and congratulations. I will say that having enjoyed the number of small ones watching the movies, I suspect that Hidden Figures and Field of Dreams may not be quite as engaging if you're narrowing down your list.
Mm-hmm.
They're both incredible movies, but not necessarily engaging the short attention spans. That would be the only reason. It's a wonderful list.
Thank you. Yeah, and one of the things I didn't mention too is that it'll be the top 4 movies that are chosen. But thank you. Yeah, thank you for that feedback.
Joey, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say basically the exact same thing that Karen said, specifically Field of Dreams, although I think that's one of my favorite movies. I think it might be a little slow for the audience that could be gathering there, but looking forward to see what the community votes on.
Brent?
Great list, Melissa, and congratulations. Question, The Lion King 2019, I thought that was in the 90s. Did they redo that movie?
They did, yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, so it's one of the movies, I think it's either Disney or Pixar or whoever is doing those. It's one of the ones that they've redone to be more realistic. So,
and I am going to say this and go on the record. It's Black History Month, and I certainly hope Hidden Figures gets chosen for that reason. So
me too, Brent. Me too.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Steve, please.
Yeah, I just support what everybody else said. A good and diverse list of movies. It'll be real interesting to see what 4 are chosen. I was particularly hopeful that Field and Dreams might make it. I really like to go watch it in a park setting like that, but you might be right. The whole crowd might fall asleep before the movie's over with in the park. So anyway, good list. Be a good one to get out to the public to vote on.
Well, honestly, I think falling asleep watching a movie in the park actually sounds wonderful. So I would not mind that at all. And I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, I'm all about the kids, but sometimes it's nice to get an audience that maybe stays away because of the number of kids. And this might be a way for them to be able to show up. And then to Brent's point, I think, well, I guess it's to Brent's point a little bit, but just to maybe make it a little more general, Melissa, I certainly don't want to change your program or tell you how to do things, but it might be a good idea to, while you're going to take the top 4, if you've got number 5 or 6 that is really close that you think might be a better fit for our audience, or to create some diversity and equity in what we're presenting, maybe take the liberty to throw that in there instead of a number 4 or something. Certainly I wouldn't take the bottom one and put it to the top, but if something's close, understanding that, sometimes a vote that's separated by 2 or 3 or even 15 in a community this large really can be looked at almost like a tie. And then the question I have about this, you said it's going to be opened tomorrow, I think you said, to voting. How is this going to be distributed to the community? Because I know I would like to be able to share that opportunity, and how are we going to be able to get that?
So I'll have a landing page on our city website that'll have the link. We'll get it out on all of our social media channels. The information is currently in the spring trail news that has the voting date opening. It'll get sent out in our monthly e-trail news, and then I'll usually make postcards and put those out in different city facilities and public places with QR codes that people can scan and vote as well. So I'll usually try to, around the time where we're gathering votes for this, especially with some of the other programs that I'll talk about in our staff report, set up a booth at the farmers market to gain some votes as well. So
I think all that's great. I love QR codes. They're very efficient. You might consider even printing a, just kind of a full-size sheet, like a poster that people can just walk by and scan and not have to take something. Is it too much work for you to send that to PRAC members, email that to us as well, so that we can use it to distribute through our personal channels?
no, not at all.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Karen, you had another comment?
Just an oddball comment. I know as we've been going through COVID, there was a discussion about doing drive-in movies, I think using the Catholic Church parking lot. I would love to see Field of Dreams and Hidden Figures down at Oregon City Brewing on one of the walls. I'm not sure what our budget is, but they don't always have to be family friendly. And this old boomer would love to go to a drive-in movie in Oregon City that isn't cute little kids running all over the grass watching the movie. Just an FYI for future budget.
Karen, I'm glad you bring up budget because we're looking for sponsors. So if any of you would like to help sponsor movies in the park,
Being honest,
or anyone listening would like to help sponsor movies in the park, please contact Melissa and she will gladly take your money.
And to give us a little bit of an idea, when you say sponsor, like what are some price points on that? I mean, I know you'll gladly accept anything, but we have no idea what it takes to run that or anything. Can you give us an idea?
As far as what the sponsorship costs are?
Yeah, like what exactly are you looking for? You're looking for one to take care of everything? You're looking for just 10 sponsors that can share it? Like, what does that look like?
So it's similar to kind of how if you've seen some of our sponsors with the concert series, because that's bigger, but I have two premier sponsors that I look for, and that's $1,000 per sponsor. And that helps cover the cost of the screen and sound. And then I have 4 individual movie sponsors that are $600 a piece, and that helps cover the movie licensing costs. And then I have a level that's friends of the concerts, which is $50. And that helps as add, because the screen costs and the sound costs are pretty substantial to as far as the cost of the program.
You're kind of looking for 2 premieres and then 1 movie sponsor for each. So 4 of those, and then individual sponsors, the $50, like typically how many of those would you like to have?
I mean, as many as I can get. It's a new level that we added, so we haven't had that yet, but it's to help essentially with the cost or the financial stability plan that we have.
And is that something, I guess you'd put it on as an event or just a post or something on social media so that we can share that around to the community as well?
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
yeah, we have it. It's all on our website, as well as I believe it should be next week be sent out in the monthly e-trail newsletter for information about sponsorship and vendors for those events. Because it's both concerts and movies.
Yeah, and if you could, I mean, you can always put it in the, with the voting and all that too, but if you create it separate, I think it would just, if we can, for marketing purposes, if I can put out two things, it's kind of it helps, cross markets to the other one. It's, I think, more beneficial. So perfect. That's great. Melissa, thank you for that. Kendall, staff reports, it's you.
Oh, we've got a lot to talk about. We weren't able to provide updates last month, so we have a lot going on. I wanted to provide an update on our cost recovery communication plan. Our cost recovery landing page went live on our website in January. We have our continuum up, our master fees, and an explanation of what we've been working on the past year with our financial sustainability plan. We're also putting it in Trail News and our electronic newsletter for February through July. The managers have started reaching out to some of the groups that we have longstanding relationships with to develop MOUs for those groups and agreements. So everything's going well. Those fees do go into effect July 1st, 2022. So we're excited to get that kicked off, and definitely we continue to appreciate the support that PRAC provided in their letter of recommendation. And we will continue to need that support as we work through this transition with the community as well. I know I've received a lot of questions about Sportscrafts and the license agreement. So I wanted everyone to be aware that negotiations are still ongoing. We do have our legal counsel managing the negotiations. So the matter is confidential. I can't share a lot of details. Obviously, we're doing everything within our power to address the concerns and move forward with getting this license agreement finalized. But at this point, that is all I can share at this time. Clackamas Park Master Plan, like Karen said, Tuesday, March 1st at 6 p.m. at City Hall in the Commission Chambers. We'll have our public engagement meeting. This will be a hybrid meeting and people can attend via Zoom or in person. We currently already have like 15 people registered to participate virtually through Zoom. So we're expecting a pretty big turnout. So we encourage all of you to participate as well. We definitely want your input and we're excited to kick this off. We're also inviting the public to review the project page on our city website and also take the survey. The survey did go out to all of you. Please share that with all of your groups. We currently have 292 people who've taken the survey, which is huge for us. People are very engaged and providing good feedback. That survey will be open through March 14th. And we're trying to get as many people as possible to participate and provide input with the survey. Any questions about the master plan and the meeting? All right, Parks Master Plan. So we did put out an RFP for an update of our Parks Master Plan. We received 2 proposals on February 4th. We are currently reviewing those proposals. We will have the consultants coming in next week to provide presentations, and we're hoping to get that master plan kicked off sometime in April. So we're pretty excited about that. And as you all know, PRAC will be heavily involved in that process. Other than that, that concludes my update. Any other questions for me before I turn it over to Denise?
Kendall,
Sure.
discussion about a volunteer coordinator who is now cross-training up at the cemetery. Thank you, Justin, for the double job.
So Justin, who was newly hired, I think it was back in October as my administrative assistant, and part of the plan, we had some conversations about the need to have a volunteer coordinator, to have someone who could assist in handling some of those duties. And part of the plan was to get the new administrative assistant on board, to do some analysis of the volunteer opportunities that we have, and to get Justin up to speed so we could start to centralize that. Obviously, Justin's wearing a lot of hats and providing a lot of support, spending multiple times and time at aquatics and cemetery and Pioneer Center, providing support to other departments. And while he's doing his training, that's still something that we're planning on moving forward with. But something that I also wanted to provide an update on is we are currently working with a consultant to do a organizational assessment of the Parks and Recreation Department, to look at all of the positions that we have, to review all of the job descriptions. We have them scheduled to do site visits in March to meet with all of the managers, the staff, to get input. So from that information, we can put together an organizational structure utilizing best practices and needs of the department. Because we've had numerous conversations about gaps and positions that we need. And the plan is to use that information to share it with the city manager, also share it with PRAC, and finance and HR. So as we move forward, we can start to make some changes. Look at the setup that we currently have. Are there changes that we can currently make? And then moving down the line, those key positions that we can start to look at and add as we go through the budget process and advocate for those positions. So we're really excited about getting that going and getting that completed. And we'll have some more information to provide at a later date. All right, any other questions? All right, Denise.
Good evening, PRAC members. Let's start with facilities. Our staffing capacity was back up to full staff, and we are back down to 1.75 of our staff due to a medical reason. So we are going back to essential facility function work orders primarily, and working through our backlog of high priority essential functions. So with that, we are also looking at our Mausoleum roof scope of work for bid, and that first draft has been produced. We're in the review and edit phases of that scope of work that we'll put in our bid packet. And we've been tasked with doing some estimates and research for ARPA funding prospective projects. So that is also taxing our efforts in staffing. And then we have the West Good Neighbor agreement that we have a project manager, which is Plan B. We have procured our arborist. They have gone out and marked the trees that they are providing arborist reports for. We'll evaluate those arborist reports once they are sent back to us, and we're hoping to get those by the end of this week, early next week. And that is our phase one priority for the West Good Neighbor projects. Just in relation to where that is, it's the river access trail. So right along, right behind the west buildings and facilities, all the way out through to the cove to the main street. And so the next phase is we did procure and contract with a contractor to do the invasive species along sections of the trail. And so we'll get those guys started here pretty soon. Upcoming is our annual report April 1st for West for these Good Neighbor project funds. So we'll produce that report as well. That's really kind of all I have at this moment, and everything else that was already in your packets.
One additional update regarding parks, since John is not here. Many of you have seen the staff reports that we provided to you on a monthly basis, and we've had a lot of conversations about issues with vandalism at our parks and destruction of our bathrooms, managing the homeless population. And we've identified some areas where we've had constant issues. And we had some conversations with VFW and some of the issues that they had been having in the parking lot. And we had talked about some opportunities to look at possible fencing of that area. And what we found is once we address the issue in one area, we have people move to another area. And so Denise and John have been doing some research on security patrols and doing some outreach to places like Clackamas County and finding out how they've used security patrols to help reduce the issues with the vandalism and the homeless population. And so we were able to get some proposals, and we presented that information to our city manager, and then we were able to get funding for that approved. And so starting in June, we are going to be contracting with a company to actually start doing a route of some of those areas that we've identified where we have some of the most issues, so we can start to see if having those patrols will reduce those issues, and if that's something that we should look at and pursue long-term. So just wanted everyone to be aware of that. We hope that we will have tremendous success. And since it's during the summer months where we see the most activity, we think we should get a better understanding if this is gonna kind of work moving forward. Steve?
Just a quick question. You say a company, that's a security type company that has security guards that?
Yes. Yes.
Are you talking a nighttime type scenario? Nighttime.
Yes.
Scenario. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Melissa?
So we talked a little bit about this, but Concerts in the Park has been announced. We are bringing back that event this summer. So we're currently soliciting sponsorship and food vendors and sound vendors for that event. All of the bands have been booked so far. And then Movies in the Park will open for voting tomorrow. We have a lifeguard certification class that I'm teaching next weekend, and we anticipate certifying 10 additional staff as long as nobody gets sick and everyone can pass all the skills. So far, our spring break lifeguard class has 2 people signed up that are interested in working in for our facility. And so that's gonna pretty much bring us almost up to full staffing, which I'm super excited about, with the exception of some swimming lesson instructors. So we do have an adult swim lesson instructor that we have hired. And so we will be teaching adult group or some semi-private lessons that are geared towards adults who have little to no experience with water or may even have a fear of the water. And so that'll start next week, and we'll have another session in April that we usually do every year. We're adding additional fitness classes into the community room, and over the last couple of months, we've added 4 additional classes in there. We have a Pilates class that's taking place on Wednesday mornings, a stretching class on Monday mornings, and then a couple other fitness classes on Thursday and Friday evenings. The Ermitinger House has opened the Preserve Our Past Art and Poetry contest. And so far we have received 2 submissions, but anticipate receiving a few dozen more at least between now and May. And that's an event that we gear towards 11 to 15-year-olds. Spring break camps are open for registration, and we have 8 spots available still as of today. And then next month is when we're going to start our recruitment for summer camp counselors and inclusion companions, as well as opening up our junior camp counselor positions, which is a volunteer program that we do in the summer for ages 13 to 17 to volunteer for 1-week periods during the summer. Along with this, we'll also start advertising and opening up our scholarship applications to be able to provide resources for people in the community to attend our camps this summer. And then daddy-daughter dinner dance. So we have historically done daddy-daughter dinner dance in February and moved it to April this year. Registration for that is going to open up on March 21st. And I'm really excited because it looks like it's going to be a normal event this year. So looking forward to that. It's open to 160 people and for dads and daughters who are 6th grade and under. And then lastly, as a department, we're switching registration softwares, and I've been the project lead for this. For the last I think 10 years or so, we've been using a registration system called Sportsman, and we're moving forward with a contract with a software company called SmartRec, which is a part of the same company that we did our financial support and sustainability strategy with all the cost recovery work. The kickoff for this is going to be happening sometime within this next month, and we're all really excited about this, as it's going to really help increase our customer service throughout the department and communication to the public, as well as allow our department and the public have a lot smoother of a process when registering for our programs and getting better communication from our staff as well. And it's ultimately going to save both the staff and patrons a lot of time using this new system. So more information is going to be coming as we get into spring and leading up to summer with that. And that is all I have.
Brent has a question.
Melissa, when do you plan to implement into production the SmartRec implementation?
It's going to be a staggered approach. So we'll start, the goal is to, when we open up our summer camp registration in mid-May, to start using it for that registration process and hopefully be fully into it by July 1st.
How many stages in the staggered structure do you think?
There's a handful of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll go from probably, we've got camp registration and activity and program registration, and then it'll probably go to like memberships and punch cards. And then one of the last things will probably be like shelter reservations and facility reservations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Kathy?
Hang on. Start my video. There we go. Hello, everybody. We are so pleased to have Melissa as part of our team. I just wanted to put that out there. She's wonderful to work with and a bright spot on our management team. So we welcome her, as well as Justin. He's a delight and he's worth his weight in gold. So I just wanted to put that out there. At the Senior Center, we're doing AARP taxes right now. So we're at the beginning of that, and we're estimating about 225 tax returns being completed and e-filed for people in our community, mostly seniors and folks that have English as a second language. So we're focusing on helping those that really struggle with tax returns. This month we provided, we worked with the county. They're paying for restaurant meals to Meals on Wheels. So we used Pine Garden up near, oh gosh, it's on Malala. And we celebrated Chinese New Year with folks. So that was great fun for our seniors. Staff currently are being retrained. So part of what my staff do is they work with the county and the state in completing state forms and requirements for our funding. And so we're going from a 10-question form to a 23-question form. So it's a lot of training for my staff and a lot of extra time. So we're trying to figure out how to mitigate those time factors, and a lot of training goes into that. So we're working on that right now. Bingo is going strong. It's something, no pandemic is going to end bingo. I'm just going to tell you. So that's going very well. Historically, we have had a lot of rentals in our facility for weddings and anniversaries. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, there's less of those and a lot of memorials. So we have been very busy with memorials and birthday parties. We are still at a really high level of Meals on Wheels delivery, and we'll be shifting to hot meals being provided early April. So we're hoping to bring a lot of our congregate people back and get our Meals on Wheels delivery back down to historically manageable levels. It's been pretty high all through this pandemic, and it'd be nice to welcome people back in our dining room with hot meals. I'm really excited about having the security patrol. We tend to get regular homeless visitors attaching structures to our Peace Garden Bridge and our doors. And we don't have someone there for security purposes. It's me. I'm not very big, but I'm loud. And so I go every holiday and every weekend and often evenings so that we can keep that site clear of debris and people providing permanent structures to themselves, because we provide services to a very vulnerable population. So I have to be on top of that. So this is going to help at least the Pioneer Center a great deal. So I really appreciate that work that Kendall has done on that. One of the things that we noticed was we have exterior outlets. So that's an invitation for people to come and plug in their phones and whatever else. So Denise, thank you, Denise, and Anne, our maintenance person, we're getting those breakers put in. We've had to get some electrical work done to mitigate that so people aren't able to access those exterior outlets. We had covers on them. They've broken the locks. It's just been really difficult. So I think that'll help a little bit. So yay us. I think that is pretty much what we've got going on right now. Next month, March 21st through 25th, will be closed for building maintenance, deep cleaning, and interior paint and carpet cleaning. So that's what we look forward to for spring break. So thanks everybody for all your hard work.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks. And that's the end of our update, Troy.
All right. Thank you to everybody, to your staff. Next is member reports. So we will go around the room. I'll give everyone an opportunity to deliver a report. And as a reminder, this is time for a report, not a discussion. And then we will have, as you notice on the agenda, there is an opportunity for future agenda items. So I'll go first because I have a report that I think is important to get out in the beginning, because it might answer some questions that people have. So hang on a second, I'm pulling up some other screens here. And what I wanted to cover was at our last meeting, we voted on proposed changes to the bylaws. and that passed and then got submitted to City Commission for approval. And I attended the City Commission meeting and took a few minutes to provide some background where that came from, why, and whatnot. So by way of report, that I want to make sure I say this right. That was passed by the City Commission as amended. And the amendment that they wanted, number one, first, the proposed removal of the term, the required break between terms in section 4, number 4 was approved. And so if you look at the bylaws that was provided in the meeting invite, that is no longer there. There is a new number 4, so don't get caught off guard because that was removed. And so everything shifted up. So that got approved. Then another item propose, hang on a second here. Propose the changing, this is in section 6, number 7, to limit to 3 minutes for patron input. And remember, that was because of, just to be consistent with with all the other meetings in the city, typical public process. That was approved. And then section 6, number 6, proposed kind of 2 pieces that agenda items would be sent to PRAC chair 10 days in advance instead of staff representative 5 days in advance. And that was where they wanted it amended. And so the amendment that they approved was that agenda items would still be sent to the staff representative, but they did approve the 10 days prior instead of 5 to give more time, since Karen and I meet with staff approximately 10 days before anyway to create the agenda. So the one piece that I guess you could say was not accepted and was amended was the City Commission still wants agenda items to go through the staff representative. Now, by way of clarification on that, well, and let me say the bylaws that were included in the meeting, that includes all these changes. And so these will be submitted to City Commission again, because they approved it with the amendment, and then Kendall and his staff just had to put together the logistics of that. And then for us as a committee, you still can, and I would encourage you to CC the chair on any agenda items. Do send it to staff. If they get anything, they're going to share it with me, and if I get anything, I'm going to share it with them. But so feel free when you do submit something to include everybody, or not everybody, but you can include everybody, but certainly staff for sure, which would be Kendall and Justin, and then you can include me on that as well. So that's my report. Going across the board, any questions on that? It's not really discussion time, but I want to make sure that I was clear on what was, because of the nature of this, I want to make sure I was clear on that. Okay. So Brent, do you have a report for us or no?
No report.
Okay. Andy.
Nope. I assume you reported on the empty lot project at Timwarm last week.
I did not. In fact, I sent you an email about that today because, as Kendall mentioned, we ran out of time and nobody did member reports last time. So are you prepared, or if I come back to you, could you be prepared to give us a report on that?
I mean, I could just tell you.
Go for it. Okay, yeah, go for it then.
There's not a lot involved. I mean, there's an empty lot in Oregon City down by the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the school, one of the teachers, middle school, 7th and 8th grade teacher, I can't remember what the actual class was actually called, but the project was basically to come up with some ideas and how to basically include the community from an inclusive standpoint, ideas of what to do with this project. And so we went to the school. I actually had a misunderstanding that I thought it was actually 3 or 4 students. When we went in there was one room, and there was about 6 kids. And so I spent all my time in that one room, not realizing there were 3 other rooms with 6 kids in it. And I ended up running out of time. But I have to say, the creativeness of these kids with different ideas. I mean, some were grandiose, would cost you thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars to actually do, but to simple things like creating like a little business that would maybe an ice cream stand, you know, with the skateboard park, with parking and some way to be able to get a place for the community to go to, or kids to be able to go to get them off. The common theme was, you know, kids, they actually said this, which is ironic. I don't have kids, but probably many of you do and can relate, that they spend too much time on their cell phones, their electronics, you know, the social media, whatever the case may be. And so they kind of came up with ideas to be able to get kids off of that, and how to get the community and family involved not in the making, but if you create, it's sort of the field of dreams concept. If you build it, they will come kind of a thing. And it was really quite creative, and I was, you know, touched by a lot of the kids, their presentations. They were very nervous. Some of them were super excited. It was really fun, you know, from my standpoint. I've mentioned before, I don't have kids, but I love kids, and I'm like the awesome uncle, I try to be at least. And I love to hear, you know, kids talk about these types of things. Many of you probably, you know, see this on a day-to-day, but I really got a kick out of it. So it was very, you know, and Troy, I have to say thank you for encouraging me and, you know, suggesting me to go. But it was a worthwhile thing to go to. And the kids, one of the common thing that they all said, maybe they were taught this way, but they asked me what my involvement with the city was, and I told them I was part of PRAX, and many of them said, thank you for being involved in our community, which I was really touched by that, you know, that they had kind of that wherewithal. But it was a neat thing to go to, so I appreciate it. So.
Nice, thank you very much. Joey, do you have a report for us?
Not tonight, no.
Okay, Steve, do you have a report for us?
No, I don't, Troy. I'm still learning what we're doing here. So I still got a couple procedural questions before we quit tonight I want to ask you about, but whenever you want those done, I'll do that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then Karen, do you have a report for us?
Obviously. All right, I want to kind of clarify your report on the bylaws amendments. The city commission rejected the portion about sending agenda items to the chair versus staff. They also, and okay, I filed a minority report with the commission. It turns out PRAC is the one and only committee in the city of Oregon City that is not included in city code.
So Karen, I'm going to stop you real quick right here, because you and I had this discussion, and that you're bringing up is not anything related to my report, and it would be under our future agenda item topic.
Then I'm working toward that, Troy. Thank you very much.
Well, let's make sure we just keep with the report then.
Just to clarify, PRAC is not in the city code. It is the only city committee that is not in code. The city commission has asked staff to return with an ordinance to put PRAC into the city code. And I'm looking forward to that under future agenda items. For the time being, one of those three amendments was rejected. The other two were passed for the time being. And I had, whoop.
Do you have a report for us, Karen? Because we're going to do the future agenda items in a little bit.
No, I think actually that was the primary one, that we look at coming up with a small committee or whatever to discuss the ordinance.
Okay. So that would not be a report. Report is just to deliver information.
I am a member of the committee and I just made a committee member report. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Okay. So because we're public record, I do want to clarify that, and it may be semantics for some, but to get it on the record, City Commission did approve our proposal as amended. It was not rejected, it was amended. And there is a difference. Had they rejected it, we'd be reworking it and putting another proposal. We do not need to do that, just to be clear. They accepted it as amended, and then we just put it into writing.
Troy, I'm sorry, I did have one other item.
Hang on, is it a report?
It is a report.
Okay.
This is from City Cheerleader. I'm hearing many comments from people about, I didn't hear about this, I didn't know about this. I would recommend to all of our members and anybody watching, if you go to orcity.org and click How Do I, it will take you to options to sign up for email lists from every department in the city. Look at current news feeds, look at the current trail news. The city puts all kinds of incredible information out on the internet, but how to get it into your pocket with your phone or whatever is always a trick. It helps if you go and look. I'm signed up for every flipping email list in this city, which is why I tend to know what's going on. But, once a week, go to the homepage. It has the latest news, or sign up for the different newsletters. I just got my beautiful newsletter from the Pioneer Center. Thank you, Kathy. And my electronic monthly shortened trail news. You may get your trail news every 3 months in the mailbox, but monthly there is an abbreviated trail news if you just follow it on the city website. So again, that's orcity.org and go to How Do I and follow the little labels to get to what you want to get to. Thank you.
So future agenda items, we'll go to you first, Brent. Do you have any future agenda items requests at this time? And but before you answer that, as a reminder, but maybe for the new folks, this is not your only chance for future agenda items. We do it here because we've discussed a lot of things, we've talked about things, and it's so if it's the top of your head, we can do it. But understand that you can always send an email and get something on the agenda. So it's not like you have to remember today or you're out of luck. So Brent, do you have anything for us? Any future agenda items you want to request?
Really, probably the big one is the Parks Master Plan. I think that's very important for PRAC and how we move forward. And I actually have a question for Kendall regarding it, but I'll save it for at the appropriate time.
So just to clarify, are you okay with that being included in a staff report, or are you asking for a separate agenda item for just the Parks Master Plan?
I want to make certain that probably just for the Parks Master Plan, I think it's very important at some point, and this committee has talked about this in the past, but has never come to fruition that I'm aware of looking at what the needs are for the city in terms of parks for the different neighborhoods. Park Place neighborhood is a great example. It's one of the largest parks within the city of Oregon City, and we only have one tiny park for all these families. There are certainly other neighborhoods that we need to make certain that we are serving because we serve the community. And I want to make certain that we are addressing that in these meetings.
Okay, so
that's going to be a part, just so you know, like once we decide on a consultant, the first stop will be here.
Good.
So that's going to be on there anyway, but thanks, Brent. We're definitely going to make sure that we gather that information from the community.
Okay, and I do have
do you have an idea, Kendall, when that might be?
It will probably be in April, because we have to pick someone first and then work on the schedule. And then once we start kicking things off, we'll bring them to PRAC first to introduce themselves, to talk about what it's going to look like, what your involvement's going to be. and then we'll go from there.
And Brent, does that work for you for what you were requesting?
Yeah, I think it does. My only question for you, Kendall, is April sounds like a best guess, happy path. What's the bad path if it doesn't happen in April? And what I mean by what's the worst case scenario?
May, I would think, would be worst case scenario. With these proposals, they give you a proposed schedule. Obviously, once we start kicking things off, that might change. But I wouldn't see it going any later than May.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Kendall. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, and Brent, you said you had a question for Kendall. Was that it, or do you have a different question? Okay.
Nope, that was it.
Perfect. Steve, any future agenda items you can think of?
Troy, we received we were all sent a letter that arrived in one of the packets from Justin regarding the old Kanema Park. And forgive me for if this has been something that's been discussed before, but is there where does something like that get discussed?
So I'll provide a little context.
Or does it not get discussed?
Yeah, I'll provide a little context specifically on the letter. The individual that provided the letter had shared that information with me and wanted me to share that information with PRAC and the committee. Obviously, we at this time don't have any intentions to open Old Kanema Park at this time, but hint why we were having some conversations about the patrols, because that was actually one of those areas where we did have a lot of issues in the past.
Right.
And now we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from the neighbors with limiting vehicular access to that particular park has made a tremendous difference to the community, and things are much better for the neighbors. So obviously when we get information like that, that's part of the assessment process as to how we move forward. Obviously too, the patrols, how that works into the mix. But they just wanted me to make sure to share that information with you. And I didn't think that there need to be any additional discussion. But if that's something that we like to continue to talk about, we can put it on the agenda to talk about.
Well, as I'm prone to do, I drove out there because I got the letter. I just wanted to see it. And have you shared what you just told me with Mr. Perch? Because he wrangled me right in the street. I didn't even get 2 feet past the park, and he didn't know who I was. And so, as long as that he didn't indicate that he had spoken to you and gotten that information, that's all I wanted. So I don't think we need to take it up again. I can just tell you, he informed me that he thought the park was opening up again based on some conversations he had with some of the city staff that were there cleaning up trees. So anyway, that was about 3 days ago when I was there. So.
And since we're on the topic of future agenda items, and you brought this up, Steve, I think it's a good question, a good thing to address. So many things are sent to us just kind of by way of information, this being one of those that Justin and Kendall wanted us to know about. If in that process, when you read that letter, if it triggers something in your head that you think we should discuss, just because it's sent to us doesn't mean it's going to be an agenda item, but you certainly can respond and say, hey, I've got some other pieces. I think we need to discuss this, or can I get a report or something like that? And you could respond to that email and make that request.
Okay. That's helpful.
But it's not always going to be discussed just because it gets sent to us, again, depending on the nature of it.
Sure.
Okay. Andy, do you have a future agenda item?
Nope.
Joey?
Yeah, the one thing that I'm quite curious about, and I see you have it on the list under future agenda items already, so I don't think it's something that needs to be added, obviously, but I'd like some sort of an update or more general presentation on what the plans for Willamette Falls Legacy Project are and kind of where those stand.
Yeah, Kendall, would that be something for a staff report, or would that be, I mean, you know how far along we are on that. Is that something we should bring a representative in to kind of report to us?
We would definitely need to bring a representative because kind of those conversations have kind of stalled to some degree. But I'll reach out to the city manager and see who would be best suited to provide an update on kind of where we are and when that timing would be most appropriate.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Perfect. Karen, future agenda item.
No, just a quick response to Steve's question. Steve, the issue Mark was referring to started out in Rivercrest, which is my neighborhood. We
Mine
had
too.
kids hanging out at the overlook.
Yep.
And once we put bollards up and we blocked the overlook, it drove them down to Old Kanema. And trying to work between the city, parks, public works. I was happy to hear from Mark that we came up with a good solution for Old Kanema. But, you know, when something like that comes up, if you have a question, you can kind of tell how long some of us have been on the committee. Feel free to communicate and ask. I'm happy to answer any questions. And okay, I can answer any question about Oregon City back to 1844. So feel free to ask any question.
Sure.
But I was happy to see Mark's letter, and thank you for letting Mark know that we did see it and we heard him.
Yeah, Troy, I apologize, but my concern is, do we assume that we've solved the problem at Old Kanema? And if that's the case, I mean, I'm not sure the solution we arrived at. There's no access to that park, and I mean that's what it comes down to. So I'm going in a place I know you don't want. This isn't the time for it, but there's.
It is actually part of a new bike walk trail.
Hang on, Karen, if I may.
Yeah.
Steve, no, I appreciate your recognition on that. However, I do think it needs to be addressed. And keep in mind, people, my challenge here in getting off the agenda too much is solely because this is a public meeting and the public needs to be aware ahead of time we're talking about it. It's not
right
because, you know, I want to just hurry up and go do something else. It's really for that. But
no, I fully understand that. And that's the reason I'm reluctant to bring it up, but I didn't know where. I'll figure it all out and you won't have to deal with me later, but yeah.
Well, no, and I think that's okay because we're not going to make any decisions here where there's no vote in this sort of thing. So we don't have to worry about that. But Kendall, is there something that without any preparation that you can offer for Steve's question, or are we better off bringing this as an agenda item with maybe some other people involved next month? You're muted too, Kendall.
Right. We can bring this item back as an agenda item, but the topic is a little bit more complex than just reopening the park, obviously, because we received a lot of positive feedback that the changes that we've made has still made the park available to people, just limited vehicular access and a lot of the illegal activity happening in the park. And until we actually implement our patrols, there's going to take some time before we can come back to that particular neighborhood and that park and say, now we're going to attempt to reopen this park now that we have these patrols so we can provide this access, because we want to weigh what's best for the neighborhood and the community, and we want people to have access to the park, but we also want the parks to be safe. Right. So there's no magic bullet to kind of solve all of the issues. So there's a little bit of nuance to this.
I think, Troy, but given that response there from Kendall, I think we can, I don't believe we need this as an agenda item in the future. We'll see when the patrols start. There may be some opportunities to consider down there. But for right now, I think it sounds to me as though we've got a working solution that will follow as it goes on over the next few months.
And Steve, will you keep this on the forefront for you? And remind us maybe next month or in April, whenever you feel appropriate, that I think we should have some discussion or at least presentation on this, given that this is a public meeting that everyone needs to be involved. And I think when it comes to opening or closing a park, that's something that we need to make sure we're extremely transparent about. So Steve, if you wouldn't mind just making sure that we don't forget about it, and maybe in the next month or two, when you find it to be appropriate, make sure that we're discussing it.
Will do. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And then done with future agenda items, but then Steve, you had a couple things. I want to make sure those get addressed. Did they get addressed in this discussion, or do you have some other things?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, then with that, we have our next meeting is scheduled for March 24th, 2022. And with that, we are adjourned. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody.